What do I think the Federal Reserve, what do I think Ben Bernanke is going to announce this Friday? All right. I got to do this slow so I can understand it, so I can able to explain it to you. All right. There is a thing called a reverse repo. A reverse repo, is the purchase of securities, okay, with an agreement to resell them at a higher price at a specific future date. So in other words, I have a piece of paper. I sell it to you for $1 million. So you give me the $1 million, and you have the piece of paper. All right. So you effectively have loaned me money, right? You gave it to me. Because here's what's going to happen. I've agreed to buy the piece of paper back from you. I've agreed to unwind the transaction at a future date at a higher price, not a fluctuating price. So I've agreed to say to you, look, I will buy your piece of paper for 3 months, and I will buy it for $1 million. So I'm going to, in this instance, I'm the Fed. I'm going to give you $1 million, and I've got your piece of paper. So you can use that $1 million for a while, okay? You can do whatever you want with that $1 million. And then 3 months from now, I'm going to buy it back from you at, let's say, $1,500,000. Or no, I'm sorry, $1,050,000. So you're going to make 5% on it. I'm guaranteeing you that I'm going to buy it back from you. No risk, because I'm the federal government. I'm going to buy it back from you. That's called a reverse repo. All right, now, so put that in your mind. Let's put that aside. That's what's called a reverse repo, okay? That's the tool we're going to use. Now, let's set this thing up. In QE1 and QE2, the banks were given a lot of money, and they created a lot of money. Now, the idea was for the banks to put it into the system, to lend it out, to get it into the system, to get it into mortgages, to get it into small business loans, to get it into personal loans, to get it on credit cards, all the rest of the stuff. But they didn't. They didn't do anything with it. They kind of held it close to their vest. They didn't get it in the system. And in addition to that, what the Federal Reserve was hoping was that if they put $1 into the system, then they would lend it out to Joe Blow. He would then spend it at the grocery store, and the grocery store would pay the kid, and the kid would buy, a soda, and the soda guy would buy this. So $1 had a multiplier effect. But it didn't happen. The money didn't get into the system. The money stayed with the banks. Now, the banks don't hold on to the money, okay? What they do is they go and they redeposit it at the Federal Reserve. They put it at the Federal Reserve. These are what are called non-borrowed reserves, and they get paid a little interest on that. The NBRs, non-borrowed reserves, they deposited $1.8 trillion. So the Federal Reserve has $1.8 trillion sitting there of banks' money. Now, the banks now in our system are allowed to have a multiplier effect, a credit on that of 10 times. So the ultimate effect could be on $1.8 trillion, 10 times that, it would be $18 trillion. Now, here's what the banks are allowed to do. The banks are allowed to take that money and lend it to somebody else. That somebody else is a counterparty. So the bank takes the money from the Fed, gives it to a counterparty. Now, the list of counterparties is interesting because the list is most of the primary dealers. That's Goldman Sachs and them. But there's also two other on the list, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. Yeah, they shouldn't be on anybody's list, but they're on the list. So the bank can take that $1.8 trillion and give it to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And now it's in a sense what goes along with that is the Federal Reserve says, well, you got $1.8 million, but actually it's a kind of a credit. We're extending a credit on that of 10 times. So actually, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, you got $18 trillion of credit. So with that $18 trillion of credit, you can buy the Treasury's new paper that's coming out. You could buy municipal bonds that are being issued by the municipalities. You can buy all these different things. You can spend the credits. It's money, but then it gets kind of changed into dollars down the line. But it's credits, okay? Now all of a sudden they've got this money, and so they're now turning around and they're spending and buying a United States Treasury. Well, the Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae or Goldman Sachs says, well, wait a minute, geez, we don't want to hold on to these treasuries. And the Federal Reserve says, well, guess what? We'll buy them back from you in 3 months or in 2 months or in 6 months. And we'll pay you a premium over what you bought them for. Now, I know this is very convoluted, but that's the way they're making it. We'll buy it for a premium. So now we'll buy it back from you. And so we'll give you the money back. We'll take the treasury back off your hands. You'll turn around and give the money back to the bank over here, and you've made a profit. The bank has made a profit, and all we've done is create these credits. But the credits that we've created is on 10 times 1.8 trillion. We're talking about the possibility of extending bank credit up to $18 trillion without printing any more money or reserves by the Federal Reserves. Now, you talk about a lot of money and a huge expansion of the money supply. This is gigantic. Now, they can, however, turn around and the Federal Reserve will say, yep, we heard you. Rick Perry, we heard you. We're not going to print any more money, but we are going to create these credits. And these credits through the reserve repos have all of a sudden, I mean, we're talking, you know how everybody got upset when they heard yesterday that the Federal Reserve lent out $1.2 or $1.3 trillion? That's nothing. We're talking about $18 trillion. You talk about going down in flames this coming Friday. If this guy says this now, you may look and I can see all of you saying, "Oh my God, boy, what should I get into? What is it? Stock market going to go up 2,000 points? Good, yeah, good, okay." But here's what also could happen. We could also see what we're learning is that when you take a look at the Ponzi aspect of it, but the inflationary aspect of it, having $18 trillion, when you talk about as far as the asset inflationary boom, you know what we had in QE1 and QE2? That's going to be nothing. You know what happened in the Arab Spring over there when they had to pay more for a loaf of bread? A loaf of bread, it's going to go, I mean, you could take commodities and you could just say, forget about it. They're going to go up 10 times. The multiplier effect is going to be 10 times. If this guy puts this off, and this little beady-eyed, bearded character who's sitting there, the last of the great Keynesians, who's saying, if I'm going down, baby, I'm going down in flames, he could care less. This guy is going to take this shot. And when you get Obama coming back in September, and if we have a market that's moving up a little bit, but let me just say this. What you're setting yourself up for is a situation where the rest of the world will be looking at the devaluation of the dollar, which means their currency is going to be higher, which means their exports are going to be more expensive, which means you're going to have a currency war. And I mean, it's going to be a war. You saw what's going on in the Middle East? That's going to be nothing. And when you are a senior citizen going to the grocery store and having to pay 10 times what you got now because of what this character is going to pull on Friday, I don't know. But what I do know is that this is going to be a disaster. But this looks like the only arrow that he's got left in his quiver. Stick around. We got more. We'll be right back.